Let's see. Let's put last Sunday and this Sunday together. Last week we heard Brian Adams' Journey. Let's see, what was that obscure band that did Stairway to Heaven? And the morning's not over today. So, I've heard some Frank Sinatra today. I can't sing it like Frank Sinatra, but all right. But Frank Sinatra can't sing it like me anymore. Currently, I sing better than Frank Sinatra. Currently. All right, y'all ready to unmask love and see what it's really about? Listen, I don't normally read off of something, but pay close attention. Love. It is the most overused, underused, misused, mistaken, misunderstood, misdirected, redefined, non-defined, grossly subjectivity, that's grossly maligned word in the world since time began. I can't even read my own writing. The eye's getting there. It is masked by subjectivity, culture, and emotion. It is the glue that holds life together, yet the fodder of the broken heart. It is the source of the highest highs and the lowest lows. It produces the epitome of great joy and yet the epitome of great sorrow. It is cloaked within the darkness of loneliness and betrayed within the lust of human flesh. Love. It wears so many masks that it is no longer recognizable to the very one who created it. Love. I asked for a little help this morning to unmask love and to get other people's opinions of what they thought love was. They couldn't be here, so we videoed them. And I want to give them a chance to explain to you what they think that love is.
When you've been married as long as I have, you learn a few things. What's really important in love? It's the gifts. Yeah.
Love is words, it's poetry, it's music, just because.
No, love is a simple nod in the direction of the person that you love. That is true love. You don't say anything, you just go, that's love. That's how love is.
Oh, you're a real Don Juan. He broke up with me.
You don't want to get her lingerie because, well, that just comes across as selfish.
Do you remember what you said to me that won me over? Remember that night?
What did he say?
It was New Year's Eve and he didn't want to come to this party. And then all of a sudden, there he is. He runs up to me and says, I came here tonight because when you realize that you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
So I hate to burst this love bubble, but that was straight out of When Harry Met Sally.
Who's Harry? Who's Sally?
I don't know. What I do know is you will make me want to be a better man.
Still moving.
Love is it's community, you know? It's local. We create pyramids that are so universal to make this life stand as it is today, and that makes up the human structure.
When are you moving out, Austin? When I feel like it, all right? Just look at me and say, Doreen, I love you because of blank.
All right. Doreen, I love you because of blank.
Don't get her anything that forces you to ask her size. And whatever you do, don't guesstimate her size.
I want to turn your bedroom into my gym.
You will not do that! That is my room! That is my space! God, it's my space. Tom was my first friend. You remember Tom? Remember? I love Tom.
I loved him. I gave him the best 2 weeks of my life.
That first anniversary, we had no money to buy cards, so we scrounged up all the coins that we could find, and we bought ourselves a Snickers bar. We put it on our best plates, and we sat at that little kitchen table. We ate like royalty. Still to this day, whenever there's an anniversary or Valentine's or just because, we celebrate the same way. And it's in these moments that I think about love, our love, the ups and the downs. And I thank God that she said yes to a guy like me.
Anybody need a Kleenex? There's no topic in the Bible that is talked about more than love. There's nothing commanded by God more strongly than love. And though the people of the Old Testament did not get that, when Jesus came, he took the very topic of love. He not only represented it, but he expanded it in ways beyond human comprehension. It was understood even before Jesus, though he reaffirmed it, and Paul reaffirmed Jesus. You love your mother, and you love your father, and you love your family, and you love your neighbor. And Jesus took it to the extreme. You love your enemies. You love your enemies. Jesus said above everything else, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength. And then he complicated it by saying, oh yeah, and love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't matter what else we talk about that Jesus talked about. When he says above all things, it means if we don't get this one thing, then everything else are subtopics of this one thing, and we will not understand these other things, how to do these other things, how to be these other things. If we preach these other things without understanding above all else, then they become principles, legalisms, rituals, methods. Above all things, learn how to love. The problem with the word love is that it can mean so many different things. I mean, I love bacon. I love bacon. I was sharing with some people that I had some fun with a newer pastor acquaintance a few weeks ago at a banquet, and we sat at the table with him and his wife. It was a post-Christmas banquet for the Greater Princeton Ministerial Association because we're so busy during Christmas, and he's the pastor of a church where most of the people there are vegetarians. They don't eat pork for sure, and they don't eat most of them don't even eat meat, and they really believe in healthy living and just really monitoring what you put inside of you. And he was sharing with me, he said, and of course I'm a goofball, and he did not come off as the goofball type at all, but we still had a wonderful time with him. And he said, yeah, if you would like, we can come to your church. We do seminars on healthy living and healthy eating, especially through the lifestyle of becoming vegetarians. And I said, you know what? I'm doing a seminar on eating habits also. Maybe we could go on the road together and do this together. And he gets all excited. He said, really, what's yours on? I said, 101 ways to cook bacon. There was a nervous chuckle that came from him. His wife laughed a little bit more. My wife didn't know what to do, I think. I love bacon. I love Sonny's barbecue. There's not one here, but they start in North Carolina and they go all the way down into Florida. Anyone here ever eaten at a Sonny's barbecue? If you've ever flown out of the country with me on a missions trip, you know we fly out of Charlotte and our last meal is at Sonny's Barbecue before we get on the plane. Because if we going down with a smile on our face wrapped in barbecue sauce, baby. I love Sonny's Barbecue. I love it. I used to love the West Virginia Mountaineers. I officially decided I'm taking an emotional hiatus beginning yesterday. Did you all see anyone walking around here with Oklahoma State paraphernalia on? Mr. Disney, are you not trying to drum up business for your insurance? Why would you wear that in here? I'm just figuring, I told him I'm happy for him. We beat them there, they beat us here. Everybody's good. I used to love the West Virginia Mountaineers. I love the idea of having a 40 Willys coupe someday. I love that. I love summer. I love Hilton Head. I love the smells of everything at the beach. I love the Spanish moss hanging from the trees, the whole environment. I love it. I love my wife. I love her. I've loved her for a long time. Be married 35 years this summer. I love her more now than I loved her then and from the beginning. And I love my daughter. I love my daughter. The proof that she is still here today and alive confirms my love for her. I love ministry. I love being a pastor. I love music. I love 80s music. Oh, we ain't done here today. There's more 80s music to follow before we leave here, trust me. It's Valentine's Day love, 80s music, the greatest love songs that was ever created. I love God. I use that same word for all of these things, and yet surely that word can't mean the same thing for all of those things. Surely my love for God does not mean the same thing as my love for bacon. Close, but it can't be the same. I love. We use that word all the time. And that's why I said it's a very fluid word. It's filled with subjectivity. It can mean many different things, and we use it all the time in many different ways. And sometimes using it in our love for Lay's potato chips, in our love for our spouse, or our love for God, sometimes we're not sure how it differs. If it gives you any peace, they wrestled with this word in the Bible also. There's several different words that are translated for love, and they mean different things. And sometimes that word could be substituted, and you'd have to see the context to really understand what it meant. But there were words that, in the New Testament especially, like the word eros. It means a romantic kind of love. It can even mean like puppy love. I was explaining to my daughter this week what puppy love meant. Because puppy love means that, let's put it this way, I'll explain it to you the way I did Hannah. How many here has ever had a puppy in your family, in your home? Have you noticed the puppy loves everybody? The puppy licks everybody. The puppy is happy to see whoever walks in the room. A stranger walks in the room. He could be a mass puppy killer. It doesn't matter. The puppy is happy to see him, and the puppy loves him. And as soon as the puppy grows up, you notice the puppy doesn't love anybody anymore and becomes a dog. In fact, I was reminded of that from my brother-in-law last night, who, when we were out of town, went to take care of Tux for us. Tux, who loves everybody and seems to get along with everybody, and Emily usually takes care of him. He loves Emily. Emily loves him, and my brother-in-law came to take care of him, and my brother-in-law ended up not even letting him out, putting his food in a pan and taking it over the fence and just kind of dropping it because he's afraid he was going to lose a hand. I don't know why, but Tux didn't love him. Dogs get finicky when they get older. Sometimes they only love one person. They're a one-owner dog. As I explained to her, that's puppy love. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. You grow up and suddenly you realize, oh, that wasn't love. It wasn't love. The Bible has the word phileo. It means a brotherly type love, and it's used in some powerful ways in the Bible. There are ways in the Bible that love is used where the context really speaks of lust more than it does love. A desire for somebody, physically speaking, fleshly, sexually speaking. And I always think of Jacob. Jacob went to live with his uncle Laban, and he was actually on the run. He was fearing for his own life, and he went to live with Uncle Laban. And I know it sounds weird, maybe not so weird for people in different parts of West Virginia, but he met his cousins. And of course, he was tricked into marrying cousin Leah, but that wasn't who he really wanted. He wanted Rachel. And the Bible literally says that he saw Rachel. She was lovely in form, and he loved her. He didn't even know her yet. All he saw was she was lovely in form. Cue brick house, please. We've done that in the past. We're not going to do that anymore. You guys, every one of you can relate to that. Women, maybe not so much. But men, how many of us, when we were younger, high school, college, saw a good-looking girl, we were with our buddies, and we saw a good-looking girl, and we said, I'm in love. Can I please see hands of all the honest men in here that has done that? Thank you, Doug. You and I are the only ones that have done that. Thank you, Ed. I know, because I was with you when you said it. It was just last week. No, it was when we were young'uns and we cruised. We were cruisers, real cruisers, in the real cruising days. I loved it, by the way. I loved cruising. I loved my Barracuda. Did you love your Camaro? Absolutely. We also love God, though, don't we? And we love our wives and we love our children. Love, today it's a very misunderstood word, and if you're young here and you're teenagers, you're going through many changes of life now where you're going to try to figure out what love is. And I told my daughter, I said, you can't really love anybody until after you've been married, because you don't really know them till after you've been married and you live with each other for a while. There's a form of love that leads you to the point of saying I do, but there's a love in the Bible that God is shooting for that is a little bit higher than our love for bacon, our love for cruising, our love for whatever it is that we say, I love this and I love that. What is love? The great prophet sang, what is love? What is love? What is love? I love this verse of Scripture. It parallels with John 3:16, but this is 1 John 3:16. And John says, this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. If anyone has material possessions and sees his brother in need but has no pity on him, how can the love of God be in him? Dear children, let us not love with words or tongue, but with actions and in truth. Here's how we know what love is. And it's a word there that most of you have heard. It's the word agape. A-G-A-P-E. Agape. And it's a word that is very different than the word phileo, which means a brotherly love or the love that friends would have for each other. It's very different from the word eros, which speaks of romantic kind of love. Because romantic kind of love is very conditional. How many of you guys ever dated anybody before you married the one you're with right now? It just didn't click. How many of y'all, at least at the time, thought you loved them? Looking back, you realize maybe, probably not, but at the time. Romantic love is very finicky. It's very emotionally driven. It's a daisy kind of love. I love him not. I love him not. It's very different from love that's driven by the carnal nature. How many of you guys have ever come to the place where you look at a young man? I don't have any cash on me, but there's half of it. And your teenage daughter starts telling you about some guy who plays. What role does he play? Who is it? Huh? The guy with the hot body you were telling me about. He plays some superhero. Which one is it?
Green Arrow.
Green Arrow. What's his name? Stephen Amell. Yeah. He, in case you do not know, has a hot body. BJ, did you just shake your head and raise your eyebrows at me? Did you just go... The Green Arrow, he's hot. If you're a young girl, you might tend to see him and go, oh, I so love him. I love him. Guys are the easiest to confuse. Girls confuse emotional things with love. You know, you meet a young man and he stirs your heart and makes you feel all weird and gushy inside. You got butterflies and sweaty palms. It's like, oh, I think I love him. Guys are driven more with yoga pants. Hey, I'm just being real up in here. Y'all can't handle it, go to the... Well, I got to stop mentioning churches by name, because I did that one Sunday and there was a Baptist pastor visiting that Sunday, and I had some fun with the Baptists. Jonathan, you weren't offended, were you? Sure. You came back, though. He did not. It's very important for young girls to know that when young guys tell them, I love you, that they really don't love you. They're not capable of loving yet. I'm always cautioning the young girls in how they dress, to dress modestly, because young girls are very culturally driven with different things, with dress styles, and unknowingly and often very innocently, and sometimes acting very innocently when in fact they are not innocent and know exactly what they're doing. Open the door to all kinds of things and invite young men into their life that under the heading of love, things begin to happen. And next thing you know, it has spiraled out of control. Young ladies, here's a little saying for you. Don't open the door if you don't want flies in the house. That's a freebie. Has nothing to do with love. In fact, it literally has nothing to do with love. Love, when we're young, we don't know. We're driven by young ladies are mostly driven by the emotional desires that God has put in them. Men are driven by the more physical desires that, whether you want to accept it or not, God put in them. The two come together. If you've been to Marriage on the Rock, then you understand how these things actually merge together in a very powerful way. I don't know what love is. I don't know what love is. It's a desire. It's an enjoyment. It's something that makes me happy. Well, what if it doesn't make me happy anymore? John said, here's how we know what love is. And he uses the exact same word that Jesus used when talking about loving your neighbor. Not just loving God, but loving your neighbor. It's the exact same word Jesus used when he talked about loving your enemy. Agape. Agape love is unmerited. It's unearned. It's the love we talked about as we sang Reckless Love. Oh, I couldn't earn it and I don't deserve it. It's agape love. It's the love we all want God to show on us. And God's saying, and now I want you to turn around and love everybody else the way I'm loving you. It was a love that would be very different than other people's types of love. All they knew was the model of the Pharisees. And Jesus would talk about how the Pharisees would love themselves. They would love what they thought people were thinking when they would go into the marketplace with their long flowing robes, Jesus said. He said that they loved their flowing tassels. They loved themselves. And that's what Jesus was playing off of one day when there were Pharisees in the venue, and he said, you need to learn to love others as you love yourselves, because the Pharisees were madly in love with themselves. We all love ourselves, but to love others. Agape love. Agape love, he said, is expressed as Jesus loved us on the cross, where you deny yourself. You deny yourself. You desire your own wants, your own needs. Forget about what you want, what makes you happy. Our world revolves around what makes us happy. And it's not just the food we eat, it's not just the clothes we wear, the houses we live in, the cars we drive. It's our friendship clusters. Our friends are the ones who bring something to our life, and they add something to our life. They make us happy when we're with them. They're our friends. It's really, though, all about us. Jesus demonstrated a love that was beyond my needs, my wants, where I deny myself, and my love is driven by what I can bring into their life. It's a denying of ourselves. This love is best explained by Paul in 1 Corinthians. And I want you to notice something about this if you've never been here when we've talked about this before. And I talk about it at a lot of weddings. This is a chapter where Paul says, let me explain to you what love is. And I want you to see how it jives with what John said when John said, here's how we know what love is. It's demonstrated by how Jesus died for us. He made it all about us instead of about him. And then he used the example, if you see somebody hungry and you don't do anything about that, then how can you love that person? So what he is saying is that love is not an emotion. Love is not goosebumps. It's not butterflies, even though love can produce those things. He's saying love is not those things. Love is not gushy feelings inside. He's saying love is an action, a willful action of the heart. Look at 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient. Patience is not an emotion. Patience is an intentional, willful action. How many parents do I have here today? How many of you all can say with me that you did not eat your children? And although those many situations raising your kids definitely stirred up emotions in you while you were choosing to be patient, the fact is your patience was not driven with, oh, I know they're throwing a fit in the floor and they're embarrassing me in Walmart, but oh, baby, you're just so precious, so beautiful. No. You were patient and you chose not to kill them. You chose to be patient. It was a willful action. It was not driven in that moment by, oh, I love you so much. Are you taking notes here? That little baby inside of you, go come out and say, oh, so precious. And about your, let me see if I can remember how this worked for us when the night I almost snapped and ended up being trucked off to a room with rubber walls. It was about night 12, night 13, night 14 that I had no sleep. I was that close to snapping like a rubber band. I chose not to put a pillow over her face. I chose to be patient. It was a willful action. A willful action of love. Love is patient. Love is kind. If we're only kind to people who are kind to us, or we're only kind on the days that we're in a really good mood, that's not love. Anybody can do that. Jesus talked about how even unbelievers, how sinners could love each other and take care of each other because they were bringing something to the table for each other. Love is kind. Kindness is an intentional action. That's agape love. That means you're kind to someone who they did not earn it, they do not deserve it. But that is not what our culture teaches us. I'm not saying that we should enable people. I'm not saying that we don't need to step in and correct some things and rebuke some things when people are out of line. But you can even do that with kindness. Kindness is an intentional action. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. These are intentional choices. Continue on with that. What love is, it does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. These are choices. Verse 7, it always protects, always trusts. These are intentional actions. It protects, it covers. Remember when the floods receded and Noah and his family are back on dry land, and we don't know how many years it had been, but it had been for a while because they had time to plant vineyards and they were raising grapes and they were making wine. And they're testing the wine, and it must have been quite a harvest season because Noah was testing so much wine, he got drunk. Good thing he didn't die then. He'd have went to hell, huh? Oh, that's another sermon that will bust your bubble. Nothing will mess up your theology like grace. Maybe that was for somebody today. He got drunk. And to this day, as common as it is, I don't know why so many people, when they get drunk, they get naked. There's nothing new under the sun. How many here today are bold enough to say that back in your wild days, your BC days, your pre-Jesus days, that you got drunk, and when you got drunk, you just wanted to get naked, and you don't even know why? How many would say, just Melissa? Alan, were you there? Is that how it all began? Hey, that's my kind of girl. I'm in love. Hey, come on. I felt that. Yeah. Hey, it's good preaching, man. I don't care. This same kind of sermon they're preaching at every church, and the music you've heard is the same music you're hearing everywhere else in town today, I'm sure. Someday we're going to shock you and throw your pipe organ in there and really throw you off. You'll be saying, where am I? But I digress. Multiple times. It chooses to protect. It chooses to trust. It chooses to hope. It always perseveres. Persevering with people, persevering in a marriage, persevering with children, persevering with friends, persevering in a church, persevering with your pastor, persevering with your call in life, persevering with your job, making a living, supporting your family. These are not things that are driven by emotions, because if it's driven by emotions, none of us would stay married more than a week. Because we get up there and we say, I do to all this stuff. And I make clear at almost every wedding that the I do's are based on covenant vows. And covenant is not based on emotion. Today I love you, today I don't feel the same. You've done this to me, you've made me feel good. Oh, I feel like I love you. Today you've hurt my feelings, you make me mad. I don't feel like I love you anymore. Love is not an emotion. Tina Turner said it best. What's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? You know, in the world, she's exactly right. It's a second-hand emotion. In other words, it's something I had. I had this emotion for you. Now it's second-hand. I don't have this emotion for you anymore. So I don't love you anymore. Who can stay married if they are married based on emotion? On romance? He's not as romantic as he used to be. I understand. I get it. We can chase that dog forever. I've done it with dozens and dozens of couples. In marriage counseling, through the years, we chase that dog. What's the problem? Well, he's not romantic anymore. Well, why aren't you romantic anymore? Well, she doesn't do the things that she used to do to make me want to be romantic. Well, why don't you do the things that you used to do to make him be romantic? Well, if he would take out the trash and he would, nail the door back up so to keep the flies out of the house, well, maybe I'd do those things again. Well, why don't you nail the door back up on the house to keep the flies out? Well, I would, but I just don't even want to be at home anymore. She dogs me and nags me the whole time I'm there. Well, why do you nag him all the time? Well, because he won't do the things that I want him to do, and it just keeps going. You never find an end to it. Who would raise children to be adults seriously if it was based on emotion? Yes, I know we're going to be politically correct. We all love our children even on their worst days. But some of you that have already had teenagers, you know what it's like to love your kid but despise them sometimes. Despise their behavior. Hate their behavior. It's what Jesus was, and Paul was talking about concerning Jacob and Esau. God loved Jacob, but he hated Esau. Well, that doesn't sound like God. No, because there's a context there. It's not about them. It was about their behavior. He loved that Jacob wanted his inheritance, his birthright. He loved that attitude about Jacob. And he despised the attitude of Esau, who only cared about getting through a day. Give me a bowl of soup and get me through this day. Who cares about a birthright? I'm about to die here. He hated that disposition, that personality type. He hated that. Everybody that's ever had teenagers, not everybody, but more people than not, as kids go through weird phases, know what it's like to be in a situation where you despise your child's behavior. If our love for them and raising them and continuing to do the right thing is going to be based on emotion, our kids are in trouble. If our friendships are going to always be based on, you fulfill me, you make my life richer. Now you're not making my life so rich. In fact, now we're not quite clicking. Yes, there's times that friendships need to end. Yes. There's relationships that aren't good for us, that aren't healthy. We understand that. But aside from those few little times in life, how are we ever going to have true friendships if we don't go through the valleys together as well as the highs? We've got to go through some storms together. We've got to go through some wilderness together. I'm telling you, you can't have a close friend till you and that person have majorly butted heads a few times and then stuck it out. Because that's when it begins to stir stuff deep inside of you, and then you have conversations you would have never had if that wouldn't have happened. You and I, we ain't going to get close till we butt heads. And then you be bold enough to come to me, say, Pastor Scott, I need to talk to you because you offended me, because I'm not going to know that. I'm just blowing off at the mouth all the time. I'm shooting stuff in all directions. I don't know where it's landing. And you got to come to me and say, you hurt my feelings. You made me mad. Or I just really don't agree with what you said. And it gives me flight mentality. If you don't come to me and tell me that, then we can't have a conversation. If you do something that really offends me, and you talk about me behind my back, and you become divisive in this house, I hear about it. Those that have been here for a while, the leadership team, you know I will come to you. And there will either be repentance and restoration, or you'll leave. But I can tell you this, if that conversation goes positive, you and I are going to probably end up pretty close. We're probably going to end up actually really good friends, because iron sharpens iron. But we're born and bred in a culture that just disciples us into flight mentality. Every time something rubs us the wrong way, it's not feeding me what I need right now. It's not enhancing my life. It's not making me happy anymore. And we run from it. This is how we know what love is. Jesus, while we were sinners, allowed himself to be nailed on a cross and died for our sins. He denied himself and he picked up a cross for us. Agape love. Denying ourselves. Willful actions. At Cornerstone Family Church, if we choose to operate in agape love, we're going to be a powerful house, and the ripple effect is going to be mind-blowing. If we operate in eros, we're in trouble. Eros love means you come to church here, and for the first 6 weeks, you're just going to love it. It's like fairy dust is being sprinkled all over you. It's awesome. I love Pastor Scott. I love just the freedom there. I like the music. I like the way he preaches, and I love his flowing hair, man, and just how you can just see the wind just blowing right through all that. And whatever it is that you love about this place, I love the diamonds on the wall. Whatever, I'm telling you. There's a honeymoon period. And at some point, the honeymoon's going to end, and we're going to have to decide if we're going to get married or not. If we're going to stay married. Because the honeymoon's going to give you goosebumps and butterflies. It's going to dazzle you, and you're going to feel like you're eating cotton candy every Sunday you come here. And then at some point, I'm going to step on your toes. I'm going to say something's going to hurt your feelings. It's going to be like iron sharpening iron. I'm going to say something theologically that's not going to jive with your theology. What a concept that God would bring someone to a church to hear something they never heard before, to understand something they never understood before, so they can believe something they never believed before, so they can be something they've never been before. What a concept. But that means we're going to have some agape love for each other. Unconditional. Married people. Hey, musicians, get up on the stage. I feel a song coming on. When I get all stirred up, I feel the spirit of Rod Stewart just rising up in me. And the man can sing some love songs. Can sing some beautiful love songs. If you want my body, and you think I'm sexy, come on, baby. Let me know. Now, I could preach that the way the old timers do, and y'all be shouting and waving your hankies. Hey, now, if you want my body, that's what Jesus is saying to you today. If you want my... Well, married people. Building the church through building the family. We've been cleaning out the upstairs attic, my wife and I, on Wednesday nights, and trying to create some space for new junk. And we were up there. Most of y'all don't know there is an up there on the other side of that wall. And found an old briefcase, and there's a briefcase of stuff from right as we were planting the church, and I was traveling a lot doing road ministry, and it was full of all kinds of stuff from that, and sermons I was using on the road then, and then stuff also where we were beginning to plant Cornerstone with ideas all written down, and pulled out this paper. It was on the back of an old outline or something, and I'd scribbled out, building the church through building the family. And that was the day that the revelation came. This will be our battle cry. This will be who we are. This will be how we will approach it. We will build the church of Jesus Christ through building the family. Because if you have functional families, you have a functional church. But if you have dysfunctional families, you have a dysfunctional church. Now, let's get politically incorrect for just a second. We are in the Appalachian Mountains. We are a hotbed for dysfunctionality. It's just the truth. By the way, everybody else out there is dysfunctional also. But we have our own little cultural things here. Our own little cultural things. And I'm telling you, it starts with marriage. Everything in this house, every part of this vision, everything we do is a ripple effect from our marriages here. And you have got to learn in your marriage to grow up and understand that as we are growing through life physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we are changing. We are not going to be who our spouse married however many years ago. Our spouse is not going to be the same. We like to think that we're getting better, that we're developing, we're getting more mature. There's some areas we're improving, there's some areas we're falling apart. There are most days already between my wife and I, we're lucky to remember what day it is. And it's not because when you grow older you get more forgivable. It's honestly because as you're growing older, people don't realize this, your memory banks are getting more and more loaded with information. I have more information to me right now in the second than I've ever had in my whole life. Right now, I'm having to remember more than I did 10 years ago. I'm having to remember more than I did 10 days ago. And so you get forgetful, and then you get mad at each other because my wife, she forgets things. She's trying to be like me. I told her the other day, it's like, you can't be this way. This is my role. I am the forgetful one. You're the responsible one. You're the one that reminds me what to do, what day it is, where I need to go. And now I'm being forced into this position I've never been in where I'm having to remember information. I am not used to that. We're changing. She doesn't look exactly the way that she did 35 years ago. I do, but she doesn't. I thinned my hair just to make people in my age group feel better because I was still looking so good. And we found a picture in the briefcase, a black and white picture. I don't know why the picture was taken because we were very much kind of posing. She had real super short hair. That just was a couple times in life she cut her hair off, and I had so much more hair than she did in that picture. So much more. We were young. It had to be an old picture because I was in a suit. I'm telling you, pardon my apparent pride here, but we look good. I mean, she was lovely in form. I was in love. I had a full, thick head of hair. We didn't have a wrinkle between us. We looked good. We don't look like that anymore. We don't do all the same things we used to do. I'm just going to be honest with you. A lot of the romantic kind of things that we did in the first few months, couple of years of marriage, it's not like that anymore. It's not. I hope that makes some of you feel better. Let me also tell you this, after 35 years. There is an agape, secure love that I have for that woman that 35 years ago my brain couldn't have even begun to comprehend existed. We have been through things, and that's the key. We have been through those things, and I get so heartbroken hearing about couples that go through things, I'm telling you, hard things, difficult things that nobody would judge the emotion in, but can't make it through the other side. They can't go through the valley of the shadow of death and still remain on the other side. It just breaks them up. And some of you have been through that, and there's no judgment, and there's no condemnation. Don't feel bad about that if you've been. But at some point, we've got to say, let's do this different. Let's do this better. My wife and I are beginning after 35 years to become one. I don't know how to separate myself from her. I don't know how to enjoy something unless she's there with me. They get mad because I make them get up at 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes to drive somewhere to go to a race. And we always have a great time. And I tell them, it's like, I don't want to do it if you can't be with me. I can't enjoy it if you're not there with me. We need to enjoy these things together. The two become one. And when you go through stuff, and we've been through stuff, and some of the things that I've talked about before, with just the desire for a child that was so deep, and just a continuation of getting pregnant and losing. It's just like, I hear that people fall apart because of that. It made us need each other more. The security of an agape love with that woman completely eradicates the eros love that we started out with. I want to take just a minute before we leave here today, and I didn't want to focus this Valentine's message just on marriage because it's unfair. It's unfair to too many people here that aren't married yet or have been married and they're not married, and say, well, this doesn't involve me. I wanted to focus completely on love for all of us, agape love and action love. But would you please allow me just here at the end can we just take a minute and minister to married people, because it's where this house begins. If you're here today, and you're married and you're with your spouse, could you come up here? I promise I won't embarrass you. Some of y'all have been to marriage on the crock. Marriage on the crock. Yeah, it was a crock sometimes. Louise. All right, those of you that come to Marriage on the Rock, confirm that nothing I've said today or done today was anything even close to R-rated compared to Marriage on the Rock. We may have barely hit PG-13 a few times here today. Marriage on the Rock, we go full throttle R. Some would say a mild X at times. We're married. Ed, y'all been through some stuff together, man. Big bridge that fell at the Charlotte Raceway years ago, collapsed and people died and people got injured. Here's two of the people that got injured. How many surgeries between the two of you have you been through because of that? 35 surgeries because of that. A lot of people couldn't have handled that. Can you all imagine life without each other at this point? Would scary be a good word to use to imagine yourself without your spouse? It gives me a very insecure feeling because she knows me. Warts and all. There's no shocks. There's no surprises left. She's seen me naked. There's nothing left to hide. Did y'all just mute my mic back there intentionally? I don't know where he's going. All I know is this is being recorded. It's going on the internet here after a while. I won't make you do anything awkward, like stare into each other's eyes. I know he's up there. You want to go stand by him? You don't want to be up here, do you? He's playing this just for you, Amy. I won't do things like we've done at Marriage on the Rock, like make you stare into your spouse's eyes for 5 solid minutes, because I don't care how much in love you are, that gets real awkward eventually. We found out some couples don't even like to hold hands very long. They get real nervous about that. I want to sing to you, but I don't want you to, other than her, I want you to hear your spouse singing to you. Okay? Can you do that? Guys, I'm not singing to your wives today. Let's just be very clear about this. We're not that kind of church, though I'm told there are some still around where every woman there is considered the spiritual wife to the whoever the pastor is. We ain't that kind of church. Cindy, I don't know what it's going to do for you to imagine Andre singing this song to you with his weird Terminator voice. I wish I could mimic that right now. Andre, just give us a little sample. Move over a little. We're not as little as we used to be. I love the new areas my wife has gotten fluffy. She was way too skinny when we got married. Have I told you lately that I love you? Have I told you there's no one else above you? You fill my heart with gladness. Get everything on back there, guys, and take away all my sadness. And in my troubles, that's what you do. From the morning sun in all its glory, greet the day with hope and comfort too. You fill my life with laughter, and somehow you make it better. Ease my troubles, that's what you do. There's a love that's divine, and it's yours and it's mine. Like the sun, hey, at the end of the day, we should give thanks and pray to the one. Have I told you lately that I love you? Have I told you there's no one else above you? You fill my heart with gladness and take away all my sadness. You fill my life with laughter, somehow you make it better. You fill my heart with gladness, take away all my sadness. Use my troubles, that's what you do. Fill my life with gladness and take away all my sadness. Use my troubles, that's what you do. Fill my life with gladness and take away all my sadness. You fill my life with laughter, and somehow you make it all better. You ease my troubles, that's what you do. Now right here in church, I want you to give her a big wet one right now, guys. All right. I don't know about you, but I got to get home. I love you guys. Bless you. Have a great Valentine's week.